Hey there, and welcome to Bold Badass Business, where we bring you badasses making a difference all over the world. And today, you all, I am so stoked to have in the house Justine Reiss of the Empowered Voice. Now, I had the good fortune of meeting Justine when we were both in a competition to have our own TV show. And we just hit it off and had such a good time and breakouts. And I knew I wanted to bring her here to talk with you. You know, she has over 2 decades of experience as a voiceover artist. She's a published author. She's a meditation teacher. She works for issues of social justice in her spare, if there is such a thing, spare time. And Justine is just a delight. So today we're going to be talking about the 3 little known reasons your voice is shrinking your business power and profits. Welcome to the show, Justine.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. And yes, we completely bonded over a competition for our TV show, did we not?
And that's how it should be, right? I don't believe in competition.
You know, we had an alliance. It was like Survivor.
Yes, it was Survival for a TV show, but I don't believe in competition. You know, so many great things come out of everything when we show up and we bring our heart and our expertise. So I'm really glad you were there. I'm glad we were in that competition together. It didn't matter that neither one of us won because we did win. We won by making connections. And I want those of you listening just to remember that in business. Sometimes you may think, I didn't win, right? You may think you failed even. But there is no such thing. It depends on how you use it, right? Yeah. So that being said, when did you first know? I know everybody's wondering, when did you first know that you wanted to be a voiceover artist? And how did this idea even come into your head, Justine?
Oh, that's such a fun story. And thank you for asking me that, Dr. Barnsley. So I always say every journey begins with a baby step. You know, we hear that a lot in business and in life. And as a young lass between sophomore and junior year, I think I took my baby step, but I was sort of like pushed into it by my parents. I knew I wanted to be an actress, but I was terrified, right? Fear was completely paralyzing me, which is not unusual in high school. It was way more important for me to hang out with the popular gang, you know, and the Farrah Fawcett hairdos, not to date myself, than to be standing out. And I was not going to become a crazy theater person. There was just no way, even though I had the desire. And I think those are the things, if we're going to start talking about this right now, those burning desires of creativity that we are easily displaying as children, which brings up play and silliness and imagination and all those things, we can start to quell or find that they've been sort of, you know, silenced. Mm-hmm. So my parents said, you're going to drama camp this summer. And I was like, absolutely not. No way I'm going to drama camp. And they're like, oh yeah, you are. I'm like, but what if I hate it? They're like, you can come home. So guess what? I went. And guess what? I never wanted to come home. Mm-hmm. And I really think that changed the trajectory of everything that followed in terms of wanting to give myself the permission to be myself, to step into different characters. I came back, I did plays, I didn't lose friends, I gained friends, I went to college, I became a theater major. And if any of your children want to do that, just have them get a business major too. That is good advice coming from, I think, anyone who's now realized that creativity can turn into a business. And then I went about doing things that could get me work to get paid to do theater or to perform. And out of college, I met someone from Broadway and I said, hey, I just want to get paid to perform. He came and taught us a class in stage combat. And this comes back later, but I said, I want to just get paid to perform. What do you got? And he said, hey, I'm the fight choreographer for the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair. And I'm like, sure, I've eaten a turkey leg before. Let's audition, you know. Had no idea. So I auditioned and I was cast as Julia Miller, the Miller's daughter. So that summer, it was full on immersion into like guerrilla theater, becoming different characters, staying in character, using my voice. No fear of how I was being perceived because we were all doing this at this point and I was getting paid. Okay, granted, it was $125 a week plus housing, but still. back then. So that started it. From there, I got a job at Disney because they were opening a new theme park and they hired actors instead of just singer dancers. And I did make up a word, which I think is very important in anybody's journey of preparation to an opportunity. And it's called opportution. And
I love that. Opportution. All right. That's wonderful. So that's an opportunity and preparation.
Exactly. Coming together. And I think that was a good example of my first opportution, where I'd had this experience at the Renaissance Festival that really prepared me to do a different kind of environmental theater. I was hired as an improviser to create the illusion of Hollywood. And then from there, they were opening a stunt show. Well, remember the guy from, was the fight choreographer at the Renaissance Fair. So I had some experience in stage combat. And so they needed actors who could do stunts and stunt people who could act also. And they had hired neither of them. They'd hired stunt people and actors. And I could do both. So there was another opportunity. So I got hired and I started to fill out the idea that I was a performer making money. I didn't have a day job. I wasn't waiting tables. And I got to really have this very rich life as a young performer. Again, wouldn't want to do it today. But I met someone who was doing voiceover. And I was like, what's voiceover? And he's like, I'm going to be the next Mel Blanc. And I'm like, who's Mel Blanc? So I tell this story in my introductory classes because Mel Blanc was I'm sure there's people out there that know who he is. He was known as the man of 1,000 voices. And a friend of mine moved to California, which was the only option at the time, to live in a big city, to do this kind of work. And his first job was Daffy Duck in Space Jam, which kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow, he said Mel Blanc and he was the Looney Tunes guy. And he just actually he prepared himself for that opportunity. Now he's very talented, but I got this idea in my head of, wow, creating characters behind a microphone, what would that be like to use my creativity in that way? And so I started to study voiceover, and I had early on some good success in commercials, and it kind of just went from there and into other ways to use our voice. And I had some early success and got the opportunity to start coaching people to help them empower their voices. And now I work with another organization to help really launch businesses in voiceover. And what that has taught me is getting people out of their fear, just like I got out of my fear back in high school, to try something new or different or tap into their creativity. We were talking earlier, just before this, about people getting to a phase of life where maybe they're ready to leave that corporate job and do something else. Empty nesting, starting something, starting fresh and new, maybe at a later age. This isn't everybody I work with, but that person has an opportunity to be successful in an area of voiceover because there are no age limits. There are no global limits. And now
let's stop. I want to pause you for a second. Okay, I want y'all to think about that. Yeah. There are no age limits. You can look however you look. You can show up to work without having to put on costumes and makeup. I was one of those crazy theater people, by the way, Justine, in high school and, and in college, and actually was inducted into the drama fraternity, and then ended up doing professional theater in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. You just never know how things are going to happen. Yeah, I was paid while I was doing my master's degree over there.
I want to say, Dr. Barnsley, that background isn't going to hurt you in voiceover. It will help you. Ooh. But I don't want everyone to think like, oh, I have to have that background in order to do it. It does help them, right?
Yeah. And one person I would say I know who does voiceover, I would never guess it. She's someone who hired me to come in and speak at this church over and over while they were in a ministerial search. They kind of had several of us who were their rotating people. And, it's a great field that I think is not something that people often think about as a means, if you're a creative type, as a means of making money and getting yourself out there, doing the work you love.
Exactly. And it can lead to many other things, just the training of the voice, which is where the empowered voice came from. That's not just about voiceover, although I love what I do and I narrate books and I have a podcast and I do commercials and dubbing and all kinds of things. So if anyone were to reach out to me, we can certainly have that conversation. But with small business owners, we have a lot of other things that we need to use our voices in ways that maybe we didn't need to 10 years ago, right? With social media and the ability to use our voices to speak our truth about our businesses on social media, in Zoom rooms, right? Since COVID, we have a lot of opportunity to tell our stories in areas that we didn't have before. So which is very empowering, actually.
We do. We have lots of opportunities to share more of ourselves that have come about with social media. If we choose to not do the sort of preening social media, I'm fine,
Right.
everything is
Right.
great, but we choose
Right.
to do the real social media. Let me share
Right.
with people what I really care about in my life, not just my business, but what I care about, what I stand for. When we use our voice that way, it's so powerful. And we even have the technologies, Justine. I was thinking about this as we were getting ready to go live, and that is we have the technologies now to send voice messages. And I love sending Facebook voice messages. It's
Yeah.
easy, and it gives a personal touch that just writing the message does not. And people can really
And
hear.
yes, yes, and good improv words there.
Yes.
I think you are onto something. And I really heard about this recently in terms of dating apps, even because dating apps, I don't think had that ability. And how much more interesting is it to receive or give someone a voice message rather than a blank text? We're already just dealing with this two-dimensional face, a few photos. Add a voice to that that's personal, that says, hey, this is what I liked about your profile. I'm just talking real. Like, you might get a voice message back that already a lot more than you would have with hi. We got to wait 10 more days, right, of texting. We can get right to it. So voice messages, very powerful. And you can do them also on LinkedIn and all kinds of places. So you're absolutely right. The ability to use our voices, which makes it even more tangible to learn about how to empower your voice, because there's so many ways to.
And to let someone hear the emotion that is there, because I just came back from a conference, and one of the people I just really enjoyed had talked about when there was a moment when he did not want to be on the planet. And he talked about how he moved through this, and he has this incredible company now. And so coming back from this, driving back from Maryland yesterday, I was leaving voice messages for people through Facebook and text voice messages too. And I said, I just want you to know, I'm so happy you're still on the planet. I'm just so happy you're still on the planet. And I got the nicest message back, but he could really hear that. And if I had only put that, he could hear the emotion in my voice. And if I had only stuck that in letters, and as a writer, I love letters and I
Me
love
too.
words,
Yeah.
but he couldn't hear the sincerity and the emotion with which it was said. And this gets us in trouble in business all the time, doesn't it? Because we read something and we read into it. We think that person was so rude, or that person doesn't like me, or whatever. And so, especially, I think when there's even a challenging topic, it's so much better if we can't do it face to face on Zoom or in, meet for over lunch or a coffee. It's so much better to do it with a voice text.
Yeah.
And
you bring
by
up an
voice text, I
interesting.
mean recording a text.
I know what you mean. Yeah. And by the same token, when we do have the opportunity to connect with people in a workspace, and let's say we have, with your team, or there is a conflict, to learn, and this is where I think I can come in to teach teams, both sales teams and HR and emerging leaders, how to have potentially more effective conversations by being connected, and maybe bringing in that vulnerability and that reality of walking and having both, empathy for someone's situation, if there's a difficult conversation or confrontation, to really have it in a way that's caring and for the best outcome of everybody. And that just takes some training. And that can work both in the boardroom, in person, and as we're talking about over voice text. So this idea of having an empowered voice is very powerful, and it's not to dominate anybody.
Right.
It's to communicate better. And that's an important piece, I think.
Oh, Justine, you made me think about something. I was on this panel and I had received the information and I had assumed it was Eastern Standard Time, but it was time in another country.
Oh boy.
Oops. Yeah. And I wasn't there. Now, luckily, there weren't many people, other people there too, because evidently it hadn't been marketed beautifully. But I didn't know that. And I also had recommended a friend of mine who was there. And I'm sure she was saying, where the heck is Barnsley? And I remember as soon as I found this out, I was so mortified. I've never missed a presentation in my life. Yeah. And I did not want to just write some lame ass thing. So I sent messages, voice messages on, and I just said, I said, oh my gosh, I am so embarrassed. I apologize. I completely misread this as Eastern Standard Time. Obviously, I need new glasses and I need to read more carefully. I just accepted responsibility because it was completely on me. Right. And I really apologize. And I hope that things went wonderfully. Let's please figure out a way for me to make this up for you. Let me do a presentation. You can email it out, whatever you want to do. And I also did the same for my friend. I called her and said the same thing. I so apologize. Here's what has happened. I am just mortified. This has never happened in my life. And I apologize. I don't notice I didn't use the words I'm sorry, because I'm not sorry. Neither are you, because that's lazy. We are not lazy. And I always say this to everybody listening. You're not lazy. I like the words I apologize because they're very powerful. I apologize.
Yeah. And also owning whatever our part is in a situation like that.
Yes. And this was my part. I mean, I totally effed up,
Yeah.
And I got a nice voice message back after that. Right. So interestingly, when we put our voice out there, and I know you're going to tell us ways that we can cultivate that empowered voice, in terms of the sound of it too. But when we put our voice out there to people, we'll often receive a voice back.
Right. And that's where the dating app thing comes in, is that you put your voice out there, you may or may not receive, but there's a much higher probability that you will receive a voice message back if you just you get what you give, right? A lot of times. And that's
and there's nothing more intimate than having somebody like in your ear. Think about it. It's kind of like you're whispering into somebody's ear, you're speaking into somebody's ear while you hug them. If you think about it, you can even
and if you think about that is exactly what I tell voice talent. That's what books jobs. So we are now talking about the authentic voice, which is, I could have called my business that too, because really that is at the bottom line of why voice actors work. You've got to get in touch with you. It's not about what voice I'm going to put on. And I'm not telling you that you're never going to use dialects and you're never going to use those things if you get into character work. Character work's kind of a whole different thing. Because we're talking about solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and people that might want to get into voiceover. The first line of defense is some training that's really going to get you in touch with your voice. And so one of the number one tricks, I think, for our businesses and everything is to show up authentically. And when you can connect with your voice, that's your biggest power, really, in this day and age where we are on Zoom so much. And if you can show up authentically there, you can show up authentically and more confident in everything you do when you talk about your business and how it has value for somebody else and why.
Because the energy comes through your voice, doesn't it, Justine? Your energy comes through your voice. It's one of the things I noticed about you is I was like, yeah, she's very professional. She's very to the point. There were all these assumptions that I made about you. She's very direct. This is a person I'd like to spend time with. I was making all these assumptions based on your voice and your face, but especially your voice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think, right? That could go either way.
No,
but interestingly,
that's a compliment. I'm so direct.
No, I totally take it. But this is what's been interesting for me as a teacher, which, by the way, I never thought I was going to want to be a teacher of any kind. And
Mm,
it has been so both, and I hate to keep using this word, but it has been so empowering and such an education for me, both as a voice talent and as a coach, to keep coaching. Because when we try and explain to somebody else, which I never thought I could explain to someone how to bring more sarcasm into your read, or how to
mm,
bring more, excitement or compassion. I have actual tricks that I'm not going to tell you right now, but actual tricks that are tangible, and they take time
mm,
to learn, but they're not just applicable in voiceover. And that is why I think I get so excited about talking to, I've also been in the sales team game as well. And so a lot of it is, it's that building that confidence. And then it's also learning how to listen
mm,
effectively. And so you can really hear someone's story so that you can really call that back with them. I mean, ultimately, we're all kind of selling something, right? Whether it's our own talent, our own, if we're a business person, there's some service that is being offered,
mhm.
whether it's consulting or an actual tangible, you're selling paper or whatever you're selling, right? So the idea of really getting into someone's need, maybe pain point, they're spending too much money with this company, so this is why yours is going to be better, to really hear what their issue is so that you can empathize with it, walk alongside them as why you are the solution, or maybe not the solution, and being
I love
willing
that.
to be not the solution sometimes too.
And that's okay. And
Right.
we want, especially in everyone who's in business, we've all got to know how to speak. Every person in business has got to, you need to, those of you listening, you've got to have some really good speaker training. And I don't mean just the kind that says, okay, here's how you do your signature presentation, here's how you put it together. No, I mean somebody who's going to get you into who you are
Right.
and bringing that out in the way that you pace what you say,
Yep.
in the time that you take it, to speak it, in
Hmm.
the emotion that is there,
Yep.
even in the quiet places where there's
Yep.
no sound whatsoever, where
Right.
you're holding that energy. There's so many things that you must learn,
Yes.
um, and practice, that then make you look like you are a very good, excellent, and natural speaker. And
Absolutely.
actually, you have worked on it. You
Yep.
have worked with it, right,
Yeah.
Justine?
Yeah, and I think I have worked on it, but I did it, by doing it, right? And I
Mhm.
didn't really necessarily know how to translate that to someone else until I started teaching. For instance, in a commercial, when the line is Honda, it has everyone smiling. Honda, it is everyone smiling. Okay. So if I give that to you to say Honda, it is everyone smiling, well, go ahead and try it. Honda, it is everyone smiling.
Honda, I haven't actually seen the commercial, so this will
No,
be,
I know. This is like I'm throwing her into the fire right now.
that's
As an
fine. I haven't
example.
seen the commercial, so that's good. I'm like a blank slate.
Yeah.
Honda, is everyone smiling?
Okay, great. So now that was great, actually. You did great with that. Now I want you to take a little pause after the word Honda. And when you say it has everyone smiling, I want you to just smile from your bottom to your top, and maybe even raise your pitch, like really bring in joy when you say the word smiling. Really, let's see it on your face, because when we see it on your face, we're going to hear it in your voice. And remember, in voiceover, I'm not seeing what's on your face, but I am going to hear it
Right.
in your voice. So try it again.
All right. And those of you watching this on video format, just cover your eyes, okay?
Okay.
Just cover them. Honda, is everyone smiling?
Right, great. So we can just continue. Obviously, we can go. That's the other beauty of voiceover, and the fun of voiceover is that things can be read numerous ways, and it's not always
Yes.
right or wrong. So one of the things that studying voiceover has helped me do, and a lot of my students, and again, translates right into business,
Mhm.
is you get to learn to embrace that inner critic that's saying, oops, I want to do that over. I want to do that again, or I didn't do that I didn't do that good. I didn't do that well enough or whatever. We can sort of learn to go, there's lots of ways to do things. And one's not necessarily the only right way or the only wrong way, but we start to get, it's a muscle. It's like an instrument that you learn to start playing, where I know that, okay, the subject of my talk, I'm going to take a little pause. I want it to, the reason for the pause after Honda is not just because I want to put a pause in there. It's so that word can land with my audience. Mm-hmm. If I say Honda, is everyone smiling? You're like, what? Why am I smiling? But if I say Honda, it has everyone smiling. You have a moment to digest. It's like a nice meal, or a good taste of food that you get to taste it for a minute. So there's so many metaphors I love like that in voiceover, and these tangible ideas that can really work with your messaging as a salesperson, social media, to do a quick blurb about your business, 30 to 60 seconds or whatever that's going to be, to learn how to do those things with just a little more confidence because you've practiced these kinds of skills.
And I like how you said, really bring it up from the bottom of who you are, bring that smile up, because one of my teachers would always have us focus on connecting the root chakra, which is right down where your torso meets your legs, connecting that to the heart energy center, which is right here in the middle of your chest, right here, and then connecting that to your third eye, right? So you would be connecting everything and then speaking from there.
That's
and it creates a very, very different effect than if you're up here. When you're up here, you're going to sound like this. And it's like, and it's not.
But let me just point out, because you're bringing up something that so I talk about the 3 Ps. One is pitch, one is pacing, and one is physicality. So the physicality could be the smile. The pacing could be that pause we're taking between, how fast or slow, or where I take a significant strategic pause. But the pitch, and I talk about the chakras also with pitch, because you're right. If I'm up here, I'm going to work with more excitement. And that might be appropriate for a sentence in your message or a word or two in my script. So it's connecting the dots on those chakra moments in the pitch, the chakra placement rather, with the pause, with the physicality, with the, what did I leave out? Pitch, pacing, physicality, and pause. All those 4 things to create the message that I'm looking for. And that just takes time. We don't get this, we're not going to get this in a one coaching session, which is why voiceover coaching, if we get it back, bring it back to voiceover coaching, we want a strategy to learn what we're going to put on a demo, because that's what's necessary in voiceover. If anyone wants more information about voiceover specifically, that's how we work to try and look at what's going to be appropriate on your demo to show your range, to get you the most probability of being hired by a client, which is all about you showing
And you all, I want you to take, those of you listening, I want you to take what she just said and just say in business, period. Not just for voiceover gigs. This is about business, because we've all been in those business meetings where somebody tells what they say. I'm a lawyer, and you're like, oh God, let me pinch myself so I can stay awake. We've been in those meetings, where the person just runs all their words together and we can't even understand. There's no time for us to digest. We've been in those meetings where we've heard the really, really sucky 30 seconds. And from that, that's one application of what you're talking about. The pacing, the power, the pitch, the physicality, all this, and your presence needs to be there. The person who has the most energy in that room is the person people are going to remember. Would you agree, Justine?
I agree 100%. And I think if anybody listening or watching this thinks about the teachers in their life that really stood out to them, well, they certainly weren't the ones that came in and phoned it in and kind of were monotone and didn't want to be there. It was the passionate teacher. I had this math teacher. I still don't like math, by the way, but she was so passionate about math. She would come in, she would talk very quickly. She always had a cup of water with her before, drinking water was like we can't make a move without our water. I think back in the day, I didn't think about water at all, but she was like very into her hydration, and she was so excited. Mrs. Coe was her name, and she was just so excited about math. Now, I can't tell you I ever fell in love with math, but I remember Mrs. Coe, and it was her passion about her subject matter. So just think about that. We want to become that passionate person who's talking about our business that everyone in the room remembers, right? Maybe we're not going to hit every point, but there might be something that we connect with that person on enough to have a follow-up call, right? That's what we're starting with. Follow-up call, and then maybe we're going to do business together, and maybe not. Maybe we'll be in alignment, maybe we won't. But it's all going to start with how are we connecting? Just was what we started with in the beginning of this conversation. How are we connecting with that audience?
So what I'm hearing is that we need to keep those 4 P's. This is one of the reasons we're shrinking our power and our profits, is we're not using the 4 P's. Give everybody the 4 P's again.
Okay. And I usually say the 3 P's, but I am really adding in that 4th one. So pitch, which is how high or low I say something. Physicality, which is using our smile, using our hands, using voiceover is not from here to here. And obviously, if we're on stage, we're definitely not from here to here. So using everything we've got, smiling from your root chakra to your crown chakra, right? Not just smiling here. And the pacing, which really leads into the pause, but how quickly or slowly I say something, which one of the first things we do when we get on stage is we get nervous and we talk too fast and then nobody can understand what we're saying. I've worked even with kids for their, bar and bat mitzvah speeches, and don't even realize how fast they're talking because they're really reading. That's a whole other subject when we have to learn how to read something but sound like it's coming out of our head. Another skill in voiceover that's so brilliant. But just pitch, pacing, physicality, and pause. Those are your 4.
Love that. And then the other thing I'm really hearing is that we want to connect. And you haven't exactly said this, but I'm hearing this, and let me know how you would say it. But I'm really hearing that we want to connect to what we want to be intentional about the emotion that we're bringing forth. Are we bringing forth enthusiasm and joy? Are we bringing forth depth and sadness? Are we bringing forth excitement?
So I'm like nodding, like, yes, you totally heard the things that I didn't say, but that I really, really teach. So thank you for pulling the threads, Dr. Bonds, and the things that I did not say, because I want to caution everybody with those 4 P's. The first thing you have to do before you can even think about the 4 P's is connect to your message, connect to what you're saying. Then we can layer in the pause and the pace. Yes. If we start out by how we're saying things and we skip the connection part, really doesn't matter. We're not going to sound authentic. So really, before we even layer in those P's, think about, what am I saying? What does it mean to me? Why is it important? I can relate this to a commercial, which sometimes is very silly. Why are Clorox wipes so important to me? This is not sponsored by Clorox wipes, by the way. But if I get a commercial, it usually starts with a problem and ends with a solution. So it's a simple formula, right? So I have to connect to that somehow. Why is my kitchen a mess such a problem? Because my life feels messy. When my kitchen's a mess, I feel like a mess. But then somebody handed me this bag of Clorox wipes and everything got clean and my life got better.
And suddenly you want to go throw yourself off a tall building.
Right, I didn't want to throw myself off the bridge because my counters were clean, and then I felt better,
Now, if you can make Clorox wipes sexy, then yes, like,
oh girl, I have all these tricks for sexy.
You have the Clorox wipes. You feel sultry and sexy.
So what she just did, which you were even unconscious to, is you lowered your voice, which gets you into a more sultry tone. Yes. You slow down. Think about this. What am I doing? I'm raising my eyebrows, right? That I'm kind of smirking. I've got a little wry. So these are all tangible tricks that when you know them, you can use them.
And it's
that's
about embodying your message,
100%.
really embodying your message. So you're not just some horrible talking head. And that's the thing I hear in so many business meetings, like, wah, 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 wah. Who
Because
cares?
nobody,
But even if I don't hear the words, I'm listening for that person's energy. I'm listening for their conviction. I'm
yes,
listening for their commitment. I'm listening for, is this a solid person? Is
that's
this
right.
person successful?
That's
And
right.
yeah, and
You're
that,
not just assessing what I'm saying, but you're assessing who I am.
oh, who you are based
And
on
that's
how
cool.
it comes out. And I think this is where, people really need this work. And a lot of times folks will say things like, you have such high energy. You know what? I think one of the biggest secrets is when you're fully present, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
fully present,
Yep.
whether it's in an enrollment conversation, i.e. a sales conversation, or whether it's when you are giving a presentation, or when you're doing an interview or giving an interview, or when you're, whatever you're doing a Facebook Live, when you
Right.
are really present and you are embodying it, then people feel that. I used to write poetry, Justine, and I still write a little poetry, but more different types of writing. I'm working on my first children's book. I'm finishing it, which is really super exciting, and I'm already on the second one. But what I remember one of my poetry mentors, Bert Hadine, saying is that you see the poem, you're in the poem as you read the poem when you're doing a reading. And then people really get it.
That's right. It's the same kind of thing, like really embody it, really live it. And people are going to hear it that way.
And you all,
absolutely.
Folks,
We talked a little bit about, go ahead.
I was going to say, folks are listening for this, because think about it. When we're at a meeting, how many people are coaches there, or how many people are lawyers there, or how many people are electricians there, whatever. There are so many people in every different industry, but your voice, just like your fingerprints, sets you apart. It's the one thing that's really yours, right? Except in the age of AI, I know they're trying to, there's all that stuff going on. And guess what? I want us to talk about that too, Justine, because I can totally tell when I'm looking at something, it's a real, and oh God, AI. And there's some avatar somebody's got, and it's so obvious that it's AI. Don't put that crap out there. No, not in the businesses you and I are in. Those of you listening, we are our business. We are our brand. Don't you dare have an AI created whatever avatar.
It's coming up a lot. People are asking a lot about it. And what I really have to say at this moment is AI is not human. Right. And I know they're trying to make it as closer and closer to being human. And don't think you're getting some steal. If you have a message and you're trying to get an AI voice on it, that's probably what it's going to sound like. If you are not confident, look into hiring a voice talent. You can get voice talent and come talk to me. I know a lot of great voice talent because I train and coach them. And there's a lot of places out there, but I'm not going to start advertising around that. But really also contribute to the world of non-AI. AI has its place, and AI has been around for a long time, and people are going to use it, in terms of people being worried about, if I get into voiceover, am I going to have any work? Yeah. And I've talked to big casting directors that work with video gaming, and they're like, we need the human voice. We need the emotional tone. All the things that you and I are talking about right now, AI can't connect to the message like that. AI does not have a heart. AI cannot be directed either. For someone to say, can you bring out a little, more compassion? Can you bring out a little bit more sarcasm, right? So that's what I have to say about that. Otherwise, we're going to go down a rabbit hole.
I love it. So you and I could talk forever, and we've actually covered the embodied voice, embodying it to be empowered, really to being there with your voice and using your voice in a really authentic way. And we've covered the 4 P's, which are great. You just added the new one. I love that.
I know.
And right here, you heard it first on Bold Badass Business, y'all. And what would be the third little known reason that you see people in business shrinking their power and shrinking their magnetism for prospects and clients, which means less profits.
100%. The third one really should almost be the first one. And when I work with clients, I usually try and tap into this, especially with women. It's figuring out if there was a time or when that time was that you felt silenced or shut down. It might have been something very benign when you were a kid. It might have been something a parent said to you, a teacher said to you. I tell a very funny story that one of my first shutdowns was in 4th grade when I wrote a creative story that I thought was so fantastic called The Sexy Snowflake. And my teacher, Mrs. Fleer, with horn-rimmed glasses, and I will never forget this woman. She's the picture of my inner critic, honestly, is Mrs. Fleer, still to this day. She kind of like a sprayed hairdo that was just, very
never
dumb.
moved. Her hair never moved.
She called my mother and said, this is inappropriate. And, my mother totally had my back. But the idea, and all my little sexy snowflake did was step on her little tippy toes to kiss her big snowflake boyfriend. There was nothing crazy going on, and I know it was the 70s and all that. So that's one of the things. And then in 5th grade, which was the next year, I was not allowed to be in the school play because my grades were not good enough. So I started to tie together this idea of creativity and intellect, and down the hill I went. So where is your story? Maybe there's a story there, maybe there, I'm not saying and also I'm not trying to let's get into the trauma of your life. And you can, and you might want to, and definitely seek, I'm not a therapist, right? But I do in my meditation work, I have done a lot of work around shadow. So sometimes it's important to just uncover, because as soon as you can look at it, honor it, you can stop being stuck in that story of why you are uncomfortable getting on stage or why you might be uncomfortable getting in front of people, which 75% of humanity would rather talk about death than be on stage talking in public. And if that might be you, but you have a business you're trying to own, operate, and sell, ultimately, let's get past that. Let's work together to figure out what are the reasons so you can be bolder, bigger, and more confident in your voice and more empowered.
I love that. So looking at the places or the moments when you felt silenced or you felt your voice was suppressed in some way, shape, or form. And I had several come up as you were sharing yours. I think we all do. And I think it's not just women, though I do think as women, it is accentuated, especially if we are doing anything that is outside the norm of the quote unquote nice girl, right?
And we very frequently are in the position of the maternal giver. And we start at some point in our lives, certainly if we have children, to give. It's just a natural thing to do for others, and forget about ourselves. So we might just, without even thinking about it, feel silence because we're so interested in helping others, and we feel, and it's okay to do that too. But at a certain point, and this is where I work with a lot of maybe women who are getting towards the empty nest, women who are deciding they want to change their job all of a sudden, or maybe they left a corporate career or a big job to go and have children. Now they're like, now what? Or maybe they realize as they're starting to change and open up and their wings are spreading and metamorphosize, that their relationships are just not working anymore. And there just needs to be some acceptable ways around finding that voice again. So, and it isn't just women. You're absolutely right. But I particularly think I love working with women as much as I love working with men. But women I'm a woman.
I have a special place in my heart for we women because we have gone through so many things that really most men have not. And, there is always, I think, for every woman, some kind of situation of trauma, if you really plumb, and some kind of situation of someone trying to silence our voice, especially if we were using our voice with power. And it's just different. We're still I hate to say this, but Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex, we still are fighting sexism every day of our lives. It's just that now it's friendly sexism. So it shows up, for example, I noticed at this event where I was that the guys were hanging out with the guys, right? And yeah, and there wasn't, here I am, this woman, middle-aged woman, and I really needed to reach out to have them see me and notice me, right? And see, I stand in my power, right? And now I'm hearing from some of them on social media, and it was just interesting. It's just interesting to watch how those dynamics are.
I'm doing some studying with a guy by the name of Robert Masters, who we were talking about the shadow work, and I actually happened to speak with him today. And I was listening to one of his books last night, and he was talking about when a man gets angry. He was talking about anger. Anger is a tool. We're very afraid of our anger sometimes, but anger is a tool. But when we talk about a man being angry, we might say, oh, he's hot-headed. He had a bad day. And then there's some other things that we might say about a woman. And I'm not going to get into what those things might be, but I think you know what I mean.
Right. Yes.
So that happens.
With Bob.
Right. Right. We're here on the Badass Business Show. We might as well call it what it is.
SOB. We can say it. And we're not talking about sobbing.
That's right. That's right.
We're not.
That's right. And it's okay to cry. Oh, one more thing. Speaking of crying, one of the names, this is also something that came back to me when I thought about my, where I was silenced. My parents used to call me Justina Bina Whina. So that meant to me, better not complain about anything.
Oh, that you're a whiner.
Yeah, because I'm either a whiner. So just shut up, Justine. Don't say what you're really feeling. I mean, I probably was kind of whiny, but you know what I'm saying? Like these things, as parents, we don't think about how they can stick, how they can stick with us and stick with us right here. So, the empowered voice. Let's get past it.
Love that. This is so powerful. Well, you all, we do need to wrap up here, everybody, but I want to tell you something exciting. And by the way, I'm really glad that this interview is following last week's interview by Natalie Ledwell, which was on It's Never Too Late to Reinvent Yourself in Your Business. Because I'm really hearing those parts of what you just said, Justine, about, you get to this point in your life and you realize there's something else that needs to come out or something needs to change, that what was is no longer serving you. What was is no longer suiting you or making you happy. And it's time to switch, right? It's time to switch it up. And we can do it through our voice. We can do it through our voice. We can do it through writing. We can do it through movement. There's so many different ways we can do it. We can do it through art. But it's good to have guidance in that process because it can be very frightening, when we're reinventing ourselves. I have some folks
we want a roadmap. We want a roadmap.
Exactly. This is why I love the work I do. Because,
yes.
Right, when people come in, they've usually gotten to a point where things didn't work and they tried to work with other people and it didn't work out. It didn't give them what was promised. And they are not trusting themselves and others, but it's really about not trusting themselves. And so this is where a great vocal coach, a great business coach really is essential in life, or if you're going through great grief, a great grief coach, because they're going to give you that blueprint or they're going to guide you through the steps so you can get through it and you can emerge where you want to be instead of always just hoping to be there.
Yeah.
So you all, we have something really cool on Bold Badass Business I'm super excited about, and that is the Freebie Vault. Woo! The Freebie Vault. This is just a stroke of genius. I love it. We have a Freebie Vault where, guess what, you all listening, not only do you get to have something wonderful that Justine's going to give you today, but you also get to go in there and you get to get thousands and thousands of dollars of gifts from all the guests who have been on the show. How cool is that? And gifts, free, y'all. I said freebie vault. Look happy. So this is findable. What you want to do, everybody, write this down, is you go to bit.ly/free from Dr. B. bit.ly/free from Dr. B, and that's DRB, not DOCTOR, DRB. Just go there and you'll be able to unlock the freebie vault, and you'll be able to find what Justine's going to give you. So Justine, just tell them really quickly, what is this report you're going to give them in a nutshell? Why do they want it?
So this is 7 tips to use your voice with more power. And they're very simple things, some of which we tapped into a little bit today. And if you go to the link that will be provided, you will give your email address and you will automatically be sent this 7 tips to use your voice with more power. And then you will have my email. And if you want to email me back and say, I really would like to book a call with you, I'd like to talk about the empowered voice. I'm going to be I just got back from Costa Rica where I found a new retreat center. So I've got retreats coming up that I'm going to co-facilitate with other people. So we're not just going to do voice. We're going to do, let's challenge our fear and our limitations by doing zip lining and rappelling down you don't have to do that, but other exciting things are coming up through the empowered voice. There's a podcast called the Voiceover Pod that I do that we talk about all kinds of things that are voiceover, or we can talk about voiceover, and I'll send you my webinar introduction to voiceover. So let's have a conversation about where you're interested in finding your voice, and we can go from there.
I love it. And so the first step is you go to bit.ly/free from Dr. B, and you look for the gift from Justine. And that's going to let you get in touch with her for some of the other things that she just mentioned. But go ahead and start with getting the report so that you can use your voice for good on the planet. Your voice, you're the only one with this voice, people.
That's right.
You're the only one with this business vision.
And I just want to say,
one with this mission.
One more thing is start to listen to other voices and sort of hear what you hear, and one way to do that is, if you don't listen to audiobooks, you can go in and listen to samples and just hear different voices, different kinds of podcasts. If you want to listen, if you type my name into Audible or into Amazon, a couple of different kinds of books are going to come up. I love doing characters, so there's a few pieces of fiction. You can, again, listen to samples and just get a vibe of different things you can do. I got to record a book called Common Sense Divorce right when I was going through a divorce. I mean, what a gift. My life has been weird like that. So listen to voices, use your voice, and embody and become the empowered voice.
I love it. And be a bold badass, you all. Whether or not you feel like one, you obviously are, or you would not be here tuning in. And remember to tune in every Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific to hear the show and subscribe on our YouTube channel. See you next week. Be bold and be a badass working for good on the planet.